I had to pull my screaming son out of the back seat of my car and hand him over to a babysitter because it was his dad's time and his dad was at work. My son was fine until the moment he saw it was a sitter and not his dad. And in that moment, I made a decision. I will not support 50-50 if it means handing my child to someone who isn't his parent. If you can't be there, he won't be there. And that decision changed everything. Welcome to the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast dedicated to helping women navigate the emotional journey that is divorce. I'm your host, Erica, and if you're trying to figure out life after the big D, welcome to the club. Whether you're contemplating divorce or dealing with the aftermath or any of the many phases in between, the club has got you covered. Each week, you'll hear stories from women who have been in your shoes. This isn't about spilling tea on divorce details. This is about giving you the tools to take control of your own healing journey. Listen in weekly for advice, tips, and tools to help you move through each stage of the process. Welcome back to another episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club. I'm your host, Erica. And as we continue this hair growing out saga, we have like 3 more weeks. If you're watching on video, you should place a vote. Do we like it longer? Do we want it to go back to how it normally is? You might be sitting there saying, Erica, I don't see any difference. I don't know. I'd love your vote. Leave a comment. So today I wanted to actually talk about custody arrangements. There is a reel going viral right now from psychoanalyst Erica Commissar. And I've been watching it. I've been looking at it, and I want to add to the conversation. She is taking a stand on the 2-2-3 custody arrangement. We're going to dive deeper into that because I've lived the battle of trying to figure out what the right custody arrangement is. And I am so grateful I did not pick a 2-2-3. That just felt like pure chaos for me. And that's kind of what the research is showing as well. So Erica Commissar is a psychoanalyst. She works with adult patients, and what she's hearing from them about their childhood is stopping people in their tracks. She says that the 2-2-3 custody arrangement, which is the most common divorce custody arrangement in America, is damaging to children. Her adult patients are telling her that being thrown from home to home, 2 days here, 2 days there, 3 days somewhere else, was one of the things that hurt them the most. They never had a sense of constancy and they never felt stable. She uses this analogy of traveling through Europe and living out of a suitcase. 1 night in Amsterdam, 2 nights in London, 3 days in Paris. By the end of that trip, all you want to do is go home. So now imagine being 5 years old and feeling that every single week. She makes a point to stop me every time. Nope. And she makes a point that stops me every time I hear it. If adults can't adjust to 2 days in one place, why would we expect our children to? We did that 2-2-3 chaos on our trip to Ireland. And by the end, I just was so done. Even though we were living in hotels, even though we had clean sheets, even though we had room service, even though we had all the pieces that feel like work when we're at home, I just didn't want to do it anymore. It became too hard to live out of the suitcase. So why do we expect our kids to do it? They're more vulnerable than us as adults. They're more sensitive. And we're asking them to do something that we can't even maintain ourselves. I agree with her. And I wanted to add to the conversation because I think so often everybody advocates for the 2-2-3. It is the easiest way to be able to get to 50-50. And while I do support 50-50, if you can't get there because your kids are too young for full weeks on, full weeks off, then I think we need to look at it a little bit different. So in my world, we didn't do the 2-2-3. In fact, where we landed was my son only went to his dad's 2 days a week, just 2 overnights. And even that was hard for my son. It was hard for my son to track what days he was there. It was hard for him on his transitions. We actually ended up in therapy because those transition days had gotten so difficult. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how to help him, and they were just continuing to spiral out of control. So one of the first things our therapist asked me was whether my son knew in advance where he was going to be. So what days was he going to be at his dad's so that he could prepare himself? And I realized that while his dad and I knew it was tracked in our phone, my son didn't have anything visual. So I bought a big calendar. I hung it right next to the counter where we ate dinner every night. Nothing complicated, really, really huge, that was for sure. But days that you're at your dad's, days grandma visits, birthday parties, events, things to look forward to. It was not the calendar that tracked everything. It was a clean and simple approach to the things that we're looking forward to in this next week. And that one change helped my son start to regulate around the transition instead of being blindsided by it every single time. He knew when it was coming. He knew how long it was going to be. He knew when he was back with mom. But the moment that really clarified everything for me was the day I had to pull my screaming son out of the backseat of my car and hand him over to the babysitter. It was his dad's time, but his dad was at work. My son was completely fine. We were chit-chatting on the drive over. He's in the back seat, chirping away, right? My son was completely fine until the moment he realized it wasn't his dad waiting for him, and he fell apart. And that was the moment I took a stand. I would no longer support a schedule that handed my child to someone who wasn't his parent. If his dad couldn't be there, my son wouldn't be there. And I made that clear. It's when I shifted from being an advocate for 50-50 to his dad got 2 overnights because those were the days his work allowed him to have him. If his work schedule changed, I was happy to reevaluate. I always took the stand you can have him as much time as you are available to be there up to 50-50. If you're not available to be there, kid won't be there either. I was done treating custody like a timeshare that had to be split equally, regardless of the impact on our kid. Okay, so that all sounds good in theory, right? But here's where I want to get real with you. And I want you to stay with me because this is going to be a bit uncomfortable for some of you. You cannot get to a true 50-50 without either doing a crazy rotation schedule, that 2-2-3, or having full weeks on and off. And full weeks on and off for young kids, it's just too much. Their nervous systems are not built for it. It's fine once you get a little bit older, like somewhere in that 11, 12. But before that, it's too hard to go a week without seeing the other parent. So I'm a huge proponent of making things easy to remember. And for me, that meant the same house on the same day. I remember thinking about the 2-2-3 schedule and feeling completely overwhelmed at what it would do. Like, how would I ever plan? How would I ever know if every single week the days I had my kids were different? Instead, I know it's Monday. That means I'm at mom's. I know it's Thursday. It means I'm going to dad's. I like knowing that the things shift on the same day. It is consistent. It flows. It doesn't change, which means if you want the same days, same house every single week, one parent is going to have a little bit less time than half, and that parent might be you. So I know that that's hard to hear. I know that that feels unfair, but this is a conversation each parent needs to have with themselves. They need to ask if they are fighting for equal time because it's what's in the best interest of your child, or are you fighting for equal time because it's what feels fair to you? And those are two very different answers, and only you know which one is true. And before anyone comes at me, I want to be clear. I am not saying this so we can weaponize this in a custody battle. I am not saying one parent is better than the other. I am saying that we became parents to give our kids what they need, not to split things evenly for our own comfort. And sometimes what they need costs us something. It might not be exactly 50-50 post-divorce. And I want both parents to really get clear and ask themselves, where is the best interest of the kids who are stuck in the middle? So I want to call this out because I think that it's important. It's not just about dads stepping back. I don't believe parenting should default to the mom. I think that it's very much created by each family and how they have stepped into those parenting roles. So I will not ever advocate for a reduction in dad time. I think dad time is wildly important, especially if you have boys. I advocate for the kids to be with the parent that is the best fit for them. So then the question is, are you a parent advocating for primary home status or a little bit more than 50% because you genuinely believe it's in the best interest for your child? That's a valid position. But if you're advocating for it because you want it, because it feels like winning, because you cannot stomach the idea of your child being more comfortable at your ex's house, because without it, your child support payment changes, that's ego. And that shit needs to be checked at the door. We have got to be honest with ourselves about the difference. We have got to call ourselves out on what we want to be true versus what is actually true. And that's the hardest part of co-parenting. It's also the most important part. So the real takeaway, from everything that I have just said is you're going to have to do things you wish you didn't have to do. You're going to have time without your kids. We set those days during the week, which means that sometimes some of my son's birthdays were not my days. I didn't want that. But this is the reality of what we had agreed to. It's part of what I lost out on because divorce was the next step. So you are going to have time without your kids. Longer stretches that feel insanely uncomfortable. I see it all the time. I don't know how I'm going to get through these days. That uncertainty, that uncomfortableness, those emotions, those are real. And you're going to have to learn how to work with them. You might have to acknowledge that your house is not their primary landing ground. And there's no shame in that. None whatsoever. What matters is that your child has stability, predictability, and a nervous system that is not in constant transition mode. That's a gift that you can give them, stability, no matter which house it comes from. So if you are looking at your kids, if you are wondering what that custody arrangement needs to look like, the other thing I want to call out, just like life, seasons, things change. When kids are younger, they probably need more time with mom. As kids get a little older, especially if they're boys, they need more time with dad. I used to believe that as a empowered single mom, I could do everything that his dad's role would have covered. And as we got closer to the teen years, I realized that that was not true. That there were ways that men handle frustration, disappointment, emotion that are different from women. And showing and demonstrating and teaching him how I handle it was not setting him up for success. It is important for our kids to have access to adults on both sides, whether that's a biological parent or a step parent or an aunt or an uncle or just a really important adult in their life. So practical tools. If you're sitting in this spot, the first thing I want you to do is everybody makes a choice and then we learn from it and we see what we need to adapt. So if you're in a 2-2-3, my question would be, how are the kids doing? Have they adjusted well? Do they flow with it? Are they getting older where it's possible to start to move into a full week on, a full week off? When possible, my first practical recommendation would be to reduce transitions to once a week, same day every single week, so they can predict and prepare. Some would call me lucky that I only had my son at his dad's house 2 days a week. It meant that the majority of the sports and the after school engagements and the volunteering and the parenting time, everything fell on me. But because of his work schedule, that was the better fit. Second thing, visual calendar. Highly, highly recommend, especially in an age where everything seems to live on our phones. I mean, how many of you have a shared Google Calendar that's the parenting time that pushes through to your kid's phone and the expectation is they should just be able to look at it and understand where they're going? Here's the deal. Valuable, super valuable to have that on the go. There's also something about it being visual and up in your shared space. So create that visual calendar. Maybe it just lives taped to the refrigerator, but keep it somewhere where they can see it daily. Keep it simple. It's not all of the details. It's just big, key, important things that they can be focused on. Dad days, special events, birthday parties that are coming up, holiday, no school days, field trip days. Those were the kind of things that we filled that calendar up with. Age matters. Young kids need more frequent contact with both parents. And the other thing I would say is just because they're at the other parent's house doesn't mean that you can't talk to them. If that feels good for both you and your kids, giving them a call after school to see how their day went is absolutely acceptable. Again, if you're doing it because you need the contact more than they do, you need to check yourself and ask why you're doing these things. If your co-parent is not showing up when it is their time, then I strongly recommend you advocate for the schedule to reflect the actual availability, not the theoretical availability. It matters. It so matters. And my ex argued for a long time, it's just a couple hours with a babysitter. And the babysitter was great. It was nothing against the babysitter. It didn't matter. My kid was going through massive transition. He now had 2 houses instead of 1. He had a family that was divided instead of being one family. So we were not going to be willing to tolerate adding anything else on. It didn't matter how great the babysitter was. He wanted time with his dad or he wanted time with his mom. And if neither of those were available, right, if one wasn't available, he was with the other one. It meant, you guys, that when my ex's schedule changed last minute because, inventory popped up or something else happened regarding work, I just took on those extra days. I passed on building, my life outside of divorce mom parenting. I put that off for a long time. I prioritized making sure I was always available. That had its costs as well. So again, the seasons, reevaluating, where are we at? What does my son need right now? For a while, he needed me to be readily available, to be the rock, to be the stability, to be the one that is there to hold the emotions with him. As he grew older, he needed to learn a little bit more about adaptability, about adversity, about digging in when things get tough. So my last practical tool for you would be to help your child prepare for transitions in advance, giving them language for what they're feeling. You're going to dad's tomorrow, checking in and acknowledging feelings. I know it's hard to have two houses. I can't tell you, even now when we have the stepkids, we are good all weekend when they are here. In the morning, we are set to leave and drive back to the other house. Bickering starts, fighting starts, demanding starts. And instead of reacting to the sibling fighting, instead, all I do is acknowledge and say, I know it's hard to go between two houses. And the moment their feelings get really identified and actually acknowledged, all the rest of the shit stops. I know it's really hard. Hey, guys, your brother is having a hard time. Let's be a little extra nice to him this morning. And guess what happens? Eventually they open up and say, yeah, I'm really going to miss being here. I really wish we could be here more often, whatever those feelings are. But most often it comes up first as something else: anger, sadness, defensiveness. Help your kids prepare. It does not mean that you advocate that they don't go. It means you help them through hard transitions. It's hard to have to go between two houses. I know that you wish you could be in two places at one time. It is never about pinning one parent against the other. It is about saying, I know you love both. I know you wish you could be together with both. And I know that this is hard. I also know you're going to get through it. So help your kids prepare. Help them put words to those feelings that they're experiencing in their body, but they don't have words yet. And I do want to say one more thing about those nights alone, because if you are the parent with a little less time, or even if you're just new to the nights when the house feels unusually quiet and your kids are somewhere else, I know how hard that can feel. And the silence is loud and the hours seem to tick by so slow. The bed feels too big, the house is too quiet, and your mind goes to all the places that you don't want to go. Those nights are not punishment. They are an invitation to do the work on yourself so that when your kids come back, they can come back to the woman who's used the time to build her internal authority, to stand in her truth, to process the pieces that broke, to move through it, to no longer let the grief, the sadness, the frustration to own her. Use that time to get clear on who you are and who you are becoming. So if you're struggling in those quiet places, or if you're curious about how to really start to stand in your truth, then I want you to click the link in the show notes for the Wild Woman. So if this resonates with you, the nights are too long, the feelings are too big, and you feel a little lost at sea, the Wild Woman is your lifeline. It's that monthly container to use the quiet nights, the hard season, to find yourself again, to build that internal authority. And if you're dreading those hours alone, do yourself a favor and start there. So the link's in the show notes. When you sign up, you do get access, instant access to a guided tapping meditation to help you calm those nerves instantly. You guys, co-parenting, divorce, it's not about winning. Nobody wins in divorce. It is about your child's nervous system. And divorce is going to be hard. You are going to have to do things that you don't really want to, and you're not going to get all the things that you wanted. But you are going to get through it. You are going to come out stronger on the other side, and you are going to learn from it. So same days, same house every week. Reduce the transitions. Transition days are the hardest for everybody. Do your best to reduce the number that you have. Give them a calendar, create predictability, create transparency around where they're going when, and be honest with yourself about what you want versus what they need. That honesty is the hardest and most important parenting move you will have to make. It gets a little blurry. It gets a little hard to set ourselves aside for what they really need. Like those daily calls to your kid. Does your kid really need that, or do you? It's a good conversation to have with them. If this episode was triggering for you, I want you to sit with that. First, know that I see you. Your pain is raw. It is real. It hurts more than you ever thought possible. Second, the things that trigger us are showing us something we need to heal. It's offensive or hurtful because it hit a nerve of something that we've been fighting a very long time. So if it was triggering, I want you to ask yourself why this message hurt. Dig into the fears that live behind the defensive walls and start to break down the emotions that are trying to control you. And as always, I am here to help you through it. Tough love and a deep belief that you can do this. You and your kids are going to be okay on the other side. And that's it. Another great episode of the Crazy Ex-Wives Club, a podcast for women learning how to heal from their divorce. Tune in next week for more advice and tips to help you figure out life after divorce. And until then, give yourself grace, do the best you can, and know that this is all part of the process.